Hey guys, Saint here, and I'm going to be doing the patch 5.7 patch note rundown. So let's get into it. Alright, we got Bard, who they keep buffing over and over and over again, but yet he still has like one of the lowest win rates in the game, and he just feels terribly useless to have on your team. And that's because they are buffing the wrong abilities on Bard, and I don't think that they like understand how Bard should really fit into the game. Like they buffed his base attack damage, which is nice for laning and all that kind of stuff. And they buffed his base armor, so yeah, he's going to be stronger in lane and he can frontline better. But that doesn't really do anything for him. And then they buffed his passive, Traveler's Call, which now instead of lowered the cooldown on the meep respawn time, which is nice, I guess. Like that's okay. That's like a decent part of Bard. And then they also made it to where Chime's mana restore is now 12% of Bard's maximum mana, as opposed to 5% plus or 5, plus 8% missing mana. So you actually get a lot more mana back, I think, on Bard. So that's like cool, but it doesn't really do anything for him. I don't think it's gonna like. So I'm like, wow, we have more mana on Bard and we have more chimes, hooray! Like he's great now. It's like that doesn't do anything. And then they buffed the Cosmic Binding once again. I think they buffed it again. They buffed it last patch as well. It does 260 damage now, which is great. Like Cosmic Binding is probably Bard's best ability. It's his like only really good ability, I feel like. I think the problem with Bard is his abilities are too situational to be good. Like take for instance, let's say Bard's ultimate. Bard's ultimate, in order for it to be like really effective, you'd have to like split off 3 or 4 people from their team and then like pick off the other person during that time, like kill them. And like that's the only real time like Bard's ultimate's really effective is splitting teams in half. Like that's the best case scenario with that ability. Like if you hit a 4-man Bard ultimate, it allows you to pick off one of the people, but it doesn't really stun that 5th person. Like he actually has an option of getting away from the team and like saving himself. So even if you do like Bard's perfect ultimate, it's still like not even that crazy good. It's I don't know. Like compare that to like hitting a 4-man Braum ultimate or like a 4-man Sona ultimate or something like that. Like I feel like or an Annie ultimate. Like I feel like if you hit a 4-man of any other support's ability like on the ultimate, it's just so much better. And then Bard also has a useless thing with the magical journey. Like that ability is so situationally useful, and even when it is useful, it's not like it doesn't feel like you even really did that much with it. So like I feel like they need to add some more stuff onto that ability. Like maybe as you're running towards the gate, you run faster, or you like run really fast and you come out of the gate, or like enemies that are coming towards the gate are slowed, or like they run super slow as they come out of it, or like put a passive on it, or do something with that ability. That ability is just way too useless. Like the W is okay, I think the heal is okay, but the E and the ultimate definitely are what needs tweaking, and that's what you need to change around a little bit if you want Bard to be useful. Alright, let's look at Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank, his W used to just be ridiculous. Like, you would get Mobies in the W and just, like, be chasing after somebody for 8 seconds. Like, that shit was just stupid. Like, Blitz would always catch you. And, so now Blitz, he gains a 90% burst of movement speed at max rank, which decays over 5 seconds. And then, after you come out of it, Blitz runs slower for 1.5 seconds. So, Blitz already has, like, the slowest movement speed in the game. So going 30% slower on that is just stupid. You're gonna be so slow when you come out of that. I think this really hurts Blitz's catching ability. It makes Blitz more of like a burst initiate. Like you're gonna, hit your W and then like try to catch somebody instantly on that hook. So it's gonna make Blitz a little bit more predictable and easy to dodge on his hook if you just like W and run at them, that small movement speed burst. But I think his like initial catching ability would be a little bit stronger, but he definitely seems like he's going to be a weaker chaser now. But I still think he'll be fine. All right, they buffed Darius again. Now his ultimate refunds mana on kill. Okay, whoopee, that's great. That doesn't do too much for me. I guess because they want, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's just so you can reset even harder, but doesn't do that much. And then Witness the True Strength at rank 3 only. Nox and Guillotine cooldown resets completely. That's pretty nice, but I don't think that's gonna do much for Darius. Like, what are you, like, split pushing with him late game? And you need to have, like, you need to kill somebody, then come into the team fight, or... yeah, just, these changes don't do anything. Evelyn, they buffed her Q by 10 damage at all ranks. This is, like, an okay buff, and Evelyn is like sometimes she feels okay, but this is definitely not the buff that's gonna like put her up into like super viable competitive play. Some people have been playing her with a Cinder Hulk though, and like making her full tank Eve, but even still, it's like I don't know. They just nerfed the Q too much. The Q needs to be reverted back to what it was before for Evelyn to be viable. And I don't think she's gonna be like that viable until they do that. Fizz, this is actually a buff to AP Fizz. Like, they basically made it to where the active that was on the W is now just always on the passive, but you have to put points into it. So it's like not like crazy strong until you have a couple points in your W. But most Fizzes have been maxing W anyways, so it's not that big a deal. And then it just like, yeah, Fizz just has a stronger AP ratio, I feel like, on his W now, doesn't he? Yeah, 0.25. Yeah, so before this is like 50 base damage, and then it had the 8%, you know, and they moved 8% over here. So now this is like 50 plus 0.25. So that's like an okay amount of damage, I guess. Yeah, it's a pretty decent like damage increase for AP Fizz. I think it's okay. It'd be a nice little bit of extra damage because most people were building like the attack speed AD Fizz, which just like doesn't do anything for. Like, it's actually like a minor nerf to him, since you're not like full power until you have like all your points in W. But for AP Fizz is like definitely a decent buff. Garen, Demacian Justice now has a 120-second cooldown. Whoop-de-doo-dah. Garen sucks. Never playing that champion. He just has no utility whatsoever. He's just like a walking piece of meat. You can't have that in the game. Too useless. They nerfed Hecarim's health regen. They nerfed Hecarim's base mana regen. I think these are good nerfs. He's just way too strong in lane. He has way too much sustain. So it's good that they did these nerfs. But Hecarim will still be a great champion for the top lane. And sometimes the mid situational. Kassadin, empowered stack duration is now 15 seconds instead of 20. It's a pretty decent buff, but Kassadin's pretty much his first 11 levels are just like way too weak, especially as like 1 through 6 at the moment. So don't really think there's gonna be the change that makes him super viable, but he might pop up here and there. Maokai, which is basically makes his early team fighting around Dragon and his laning a little bit weaker, his sustain, since now it does 5% of your maximum health in the early ranks, and then it scales up to 7. Luckily the 6%, yeah, it only takes 7 levels for it to go to 6%. So like this, I always say this hurting Maokai in his like levels 1 through 6, and like past that it doesn't really matter. That extra 1% is not going to be that big a deal. So some of the lane matchups that were a little bit harder for Maokai will be much harder now, and still think he'll be a fine champion though. He'll be okay. But this is like a pretty decent lane nerf. But Maokai can always, you know, do the thing where he cheeses the level 2 camp and then comes in the lane with a bunch of potions, so this doesn't really matter anyways. Usually you run out of mana before you run out of health. Morgana, just voice fixes. Nidalee, they nerfed her base health and her health per level. There's actually a really huge health per level nerf. Like 80 health per level is really low. That's one of the lowest in the game. And then her base health is also really low on top of that, so that's really good. So it really limits her ability to go into Cougar farm, and she can only do it to assassinate people. So I think it's just gonna hurt Nidalee's ability to snowball even more. And she was already kind of like falling out of the meta as is, so I don't think that Nidalee's gonna be played as much at all anymore after this nerf. Nobody plays Quinn, so who cares about this? The blind miss window. Oh yeah, they're changing the way blinds work for like TMO and Quinn, but who gives a shit because nobody plays either of those champions. Brexai, they nerfed the Queen's Raft by 0.180 ratio. It's like, why do you even have an 80 ratio on this ability anymore anyways? Like, you just keep nerfing it. Like, next thing it's going to be 0.1, then it's going to be like 0.01. Like, I think Rek'Sai is still, like, pretty fine. Like, she's still going to be able to do her job, clear just fine, and, like, do, the flash knockups and all that good stuff. And, like, even though they, like, made the cooldown higher on reusing tunnels, like, that doesn't matter that much either. So, Rek'Sai is pretty much exactly the same champion she was before. Nothing changed. Same thing. Shen, they made the ult cooldown lower by 20 seconds on the first rank, and then 40 seconds on the max rank. I think Shen might situationally show up a little bit in the game. His real problem is he's like, he doesn't really have any true AoE abilities, and it's pretty hard to hit like a multi-man taunt. So he like kind of gets outscaled in the team fighting portion, and because his ultimate doesn't really do like, You can't be walking around with your team as Shen and then like ult somebody and then like fight. You know, it's like it just feels kind of like a clunky mechanic. You have to be splitting and then ulti. So um, he just has a weird mechanic. I think Shen might situationally come back into the game though. I think he's like sometimes pretty decent, but yeah, I'm just not sure this is the buff that's gonna do it. This might make him pretty useful though. Like you can even do the thing where you take flash ignite on Shen and like win a lot of lane matchups and just use your ultimate to get into the team fight. But that really limits like your map movement. So we'll see. Um, just a bug fix to Singe's E. The blinding thing, the blind change. Like who cares about that? Just on it now. Basic attacks while rapid fire is active. Reduces the cooldown of explosive charge by 0.5 seconds and doubled against champions. That's a pretty nice buff, actually. You basically, you throw your explosive charge on somebody, and you remember they nerfed rapid fire a while ago, so it doesn't last that long. So this is going to be a good way to make sure that you can keep your rapid fire up in a team fight. You'll probably be able to get like 2 charges of rapid fire off in a team fight, I think, with this change. So that'll be pretty handy. I think it's a pretty good buff. And then they did the nerf to Cinderhulk, which I agree. Like, Cinderhulk's a little too strong. This nerf, honestly, is not really that big of a nerf. It's like when they nerfed the Warrior thing, where they, like, took the 580 off of it. This is, like, pretty similar. They increased the gold cost by 50, and then they made the health cost up by 50 as well. So, like, these aren't nerfs that are gonna, like, put it into the ground, but they're kind of like, it's like somebody's, like, pinching you or something. It's, like, annoying. It's, like, an annoying nerf. But Cinderhulk will still be really great and still be really good, so that's okay. Tiamat, they just changed the way it scales on the AoE damage as you move out from the target. It's not really that big a deal. Gifted the Toadstool, Ground Smite buff. Now it does 5% bonus off as opposed to 10. I like kind of agree with this. I think cutting it in half might have been a little bit too much. I think they should have like put it down to like 7 or 8%. Because I think even with 10%, it ends up being like 250 damage or something on like a full scale tank. And cutting that bonus in half is kind of, I find, kind of feels like a lot. So maybe over nerf this. I agree it was overpowered though, but they might have over nerfed it. So I hope they come back and tweak this a little bit more. This is Crystal Scar. Don't care about that. Well, I guess that's the end of the patch notes. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.